9.
That's a good one.
There's always a movie where I'm like, you know what? I want to watch this movie and I need an excuse to do it. Let's find a way to do an episode of the podcast where we have to watch it.
How do your weapons work?
We're coming to you from the entrance of District 9, the refugee camp set up to separate aliens from the general population.
They told me I was gonna get a vest.
Don't worry about the vest, it'll be fine.
And it's so good. It still holds up. Like even just like we'll do the political stuff in a second, but the special effects, they're believable. Like the aliens are believable looking, and I think it's maybe because of their prawn like shape or whatever. But yeah, they interact with the world in a way that's believable, like you believe they're there. Like maybe it's the way the movie is shot, because it's shot sort of documentary style for a lot of it.
Always encouraging me, you know. She said, no, you did fine in the corporate. I was a bit nervous. This little guy, hello, sorry. That's nice, eh?
So it makes it feel, it gives it a layer of authenticity, maybe. I don't know.
It's been a long time since I've seen that one, but I remember really enjoying it and it being a very good movie.
It's one of those movies where what you get out of it, I think, and that's going to become a theme as I go through my stuff today, it depends on when you watch it. Because when that movie came out, it came out in 2008. So you were 17, I'm 18, and I just remember loving the gore and just being like, oh, it's so brutal and it's so violent. And now I'm like, yeah, man, that gore is horrifying. Like, it is upsetting. Like the bit,
gratuitous.
Yeah, well, not even just gratuitous. Like, it's too real feeling. Like, there's the bit where for those of you who haven't seen District 9, it's a sort of mockumentary style movie about a guy named, I'm only going to say his first name because I'm going to butcher his last name, but it's Wilkes, oh, no, I'm going to try it, Wilkes Demir or something like that. And he is an auditor or whatever for this big company that is essentially taking control of this apartheid district of aliens who have come to Earth, who have just sort of wound up, the ship has wound up on Earth for reasons that are never explained. And they have basically existed amongst the people for 30 years or whatever.
As refugees.
And it's a really good movie because it feels real.
Now, to everyone's surprise, the ship didn't come to a stop over Manhattan or Washington or Chicago, but instead coasted to a halt directly over the city of Johannesburg. The doors didn't open for 3 months. It just hovered there. Nobody could get in. And they eventually decided, after much deliberation, that the best thing to do would be to physically cut their way in.
I said this, I was on Toon Talk with our friends on Toon Talk, and I said this there, but it's the truth. If it feels like if aliens came to Earth and they were any degree less intelligent or less articulate than us, we would treat them like shit.
There was a million of them. So what was a temporary holding zone soon became fenced, became militarized, and before we knew it, it was a slum.
We would treat them badly. We would treat them like other, because that's all humans ever do, is we only ever treat people like the other. And yeah, it's just, there's a very realistic, this is how humans would react to this.
At first, a lot of attention was given to giving the aliens proper status and protection.
They're spending so much money to keep them here when they could be spending it on other things, but at least they're keeping them separate from us.
Not with excitement, but indifference.
I agree with that. Indifference and a need to be like, what can I get out of them?
Yeah. And my question is what is the deal with the prawns? Because they come and they're mostly harmless and they're aimless or whatever, but they've got destructive weaponry. Destructive. So why do they have such destructive weaponry that's capable of such mass harm? If they're merely, yeah, but the level to which they're decimating people with these alien weapons is not self-defense. They're not self-defense weapons. They're aggressive weapons.
I've always been of the opinion that Likely because they're a very bug-like race.
Yeah.
Likely they have a similar structure, economic structure. I don't know how you would word it to like
Socioeconomic, I suppose.
socioeconomic structure to like a hive of bees or
Yeah.
ants or what have you, where they would have the queen or queens, which would be at the top. You'd have the warrior ones, which would be more fierce and more battle hardy, and then the ones that we see in the movie, I think, are just they're the drones. They're
Yeah.
the lowest. They're the prawns, if you will.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a big theory. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, that they're just aimless workers. That's why
Direction.
no direction. But what's interesting is like how, yeah, on the one hand we haven't we as in humans in the movie they've taken the time to learn their language though, because Wilkes speaks their language. He understands their language. And it's not even implied that, oh, he understands their language because he's turning into one of them. No, he understands their language because he's learned it. And it's kind of wild because there's a moment in the movie where he goes and he meets with some Nigerians and he doesn't speak their language. He hasn't taken the time or put in the effort to learn their language. So he's willing to learn an extraterrestrial one, but not a terrestrial one. I thought that was kind of interesting.
that is interesting.
And yeah, he's such a my one thing is it needs to pick a style. Like I do think that the idea that like in terms of within the universe itself, this is a documentary about Wilkes, right? That seems to be the idea, that we're watching this documentary that is both about Wilkes, the guy, but also about the aliens and their history on the planet as well. But the movie has to be a movie, so midway it becomes narrative, and then the talking heads in this fake documentary all of a sudden are like privy to information they have no way of knowing, like so like they know, for example, the talking heads know that the name of the alien that leaves at the end is named Christopher Johnson, but why would they know that? Like why would like MNU, the people who are conceivably commissioning this documentary, would never say that? Why would they say that, right? So they have no, so there's just it conflicts. And I will say that the documentary stuff it's way more interesting to see it from that distance. Like, yeah, the most horrifying scene is, I alluded to it earlier, is where he's like half turned into the prawn, and they're forcing him to test the weapons.
Load up another target.
Got this? You know where my wife is? Do you know if my wife knows where I am, sir? Where's my wife? Don't do that. No, sir, I will not pull.
What did you say about your wife?
Move, hurry up! Move!
Right, we want him in the center by the chain. Come on! Time!
Hey! Leave that fucking prawn, man! I'll shoot a pig! I'll shoot, sir. Listen, I'll shoot a pig again for you. I'll pull the trigger, but I'm not shooting that prawn.
And they're all just like coldly and emotionally like cattle prodding him to force him to pull the trigger, and like talking about him as if he's this specimen who's not even there. And there's a moment where they pull out the prawn and they're like, shoot him, and he's like, no, I'm not gonna do it, and that is legitimately upsetting. Like, it is an upsetting moment while just watching him, and it's made all the more distressing by the fact that it's shown through security footage.
Right.
And it's just really harrowing imagery of just he's like super sweaty and awful looking, and
he's been through hell.
He's been through hell, yeah. And what was interesting is I always thought that it was the goo itself that was turning him into the prawn. But I read an interesting theory where it was like, no, it's not the goo that's turning him into a prawn. It's the when he gets slashed, he gets attacked by the guy who's helping the other prawn who's helping Christopher Johnson. His arm gets torn up, and that's after he gets sprayed with the goo. So the theory is that the goo is, because of all their technology, is biomechanical. The goo is also biomechanical. So the goo senses or reads whatever that he is injured and is trying to fix him, just trying to repair his cell damage, and thinks he's a fucked up prawn, which is why it's turning him into a prawn, because it's trying to quote unquote heal him.
That makes sense.
Yeah, right. I was like, that does make a ton of sense. Yeah.
Like that would absolutely make sense. And a lot of there's been this wouldn't be the first science fiction story which did that.
Right.
So it's not out of line for sure.
And there's like a lot of really cool, like one of my favorite shots in it is the one where he's in the mech and like you see the heat waves and you see the drop ship taking off and it's him looking up at it. It's really cool. There's a lot of really good cinematography in it. The score is really good. Yeah, what's his name? I tried to look it up to see if he got any nominations or anything, but the guy playing Wilkes, whose name is completely escaping me, but he's really good. His performance is totally solid. Yeah, just overall, it's like just a really, really good. I thought I said it on the podcast and they all went, but I always thought it was sort of underrated. My perception of it is it's underrated, but just really, really good. Just a really good movie that I liked.
Yeah, I remember liking it.
Yeah. But anyway,